I'll be looking at them on April 16th and determining the winners. We'll then announce the winners at our Project Lead the Way Senior Showcase on April 19th. And anybody who is interested in joining us that day will be more than welcome to attend. I'll be sending you an invitation to that either today or tomorrow. And then I will also send out a list of the winners so that you know who the final winners were, and we will set it up so that you can have access to those portfolios if you're curious to see what the winning portfolios look like. And then the other thing I just wanted to mention is that at the end of the judging period, I'll be sending you a link to participate in an evaluation of the process. If you would be interested in helping us with that evaluation, that information goes back to Gail Goldberg, who is the researcher who was involved with setting up the innovation portal and the rubric that you'll be using during the judging. So with that said, the only other caveat is that today there are actually judges for both our engineering design competition and our biomedical research competition. The process for judging is the same on the innovation portal, but there are a few caveats we want to talk to the biomed judges afterwards. So if the biomed judges could stay online for just a few minutes, we will chat with you and then we should be good to go. So at this point, I again want to just thank you for volunteering to be a judge, and I'm going to turn it over to Elliot Mork, who is with Project Lead the Way, and he will lead you through the judging process on the innovation portal.
Thank you, Ann. The first thing I want to do is check to make sure everyone can hear me and that you know where the chat box is. So if you can hear me and you find the chat box, could you, if you wouldn't mind, just put a chat into that chat box and say that you're here and that you can hear my audio. All right, great. So if you've found the chat box, that's going to be a place while we're going through this training. If you have any questions, you can put it in there. We'll go back and monitor any questions. I'll also pause once in a while at break points to open up the audio and address any questions that you have. About the audio, when we have this many people on a webinar, sometimes we can get some feedback, and so I may be muting you at points, or if you want to manage your own muting, you should see a big green button with a microphone if you're on a computer to be able to mute your own audio so we don't get some feedback. I haven't heard it yet, but sometimes we do in a large group. I also want to note that we're going to be recording this session, and so the recording will be made available pending no issues with the audio and the video. I'll probably have it sometime tonight or maybe then tomorrow that Ann will be able to send out. So you can look back and review anything that we discussed today in that recording. So I want to move on to start the training and give you the list of things to do as a judge. This is a checklist of all the things you need to get done as a judge, judging on the innovation portal. The first two that you've hopefully already done. The first one is make sure your browser is up to date. The innovation portal is compatible with all major browsers, but it is browser-based. And does utilize some current technology, so it is important to update your browser. If you visited the innovation portal, there is a check that it does the first time you visit it to make sure your browser is compatible with the innovation portal before allowing you to come into the innovation portal. The second step is to create your innovation portal account. You can create an account with any email address. You should receive an activation email 5 to 15 minutes after you create the account to verify it as well. So hopefully you've already accomplished those two steps. Those are the first two things we're going to talk about. Once you create your innovation portal account, another step that you've hopefully already accomplished is sending that email address that you created the innovation portal account with to Ann, and then so she can send you an invitation to get attached as a judge. So the other things that we're going to cover today during the training is an overview of how the innovation portal works, just how it works generally, and then how it fits in, how you as a judge fit into that scope. Backwards. The next thing we'll address is how to access portfolios that are assigned to you. Ann will be distributing reviews, I think she said on April 1st, pending everything goes smoothly, and we want to cover how you'll get access to those. I want to talk to you about the rubric that you'll be using. It's a standardized rubric for all of these portfolios that you'll be evaluating. Students have had the rubric since they were able to view the competition. So we want to judge them on that same metric that they've had from day one since starting their projects. I'm going to show you how to access the rubric, and then I'm going to show you how to access scored examples to kind of calibrate and help you set expectations for what you should be looking for and actually how to use the rubric. And then I'll be showing you how to submit your scores after evaluation directly to Anne. And then just as a note to reinforce that, judging is due on April 15th. She will be utilizing those scores the next day. So it's important to get the scores in on time so that Anne can actually move on to know who is the winner. If you have any questions about the Innovation Portal and need support, don't get an email or have a question, my email is listed there, emork@pltw.org. So the first step is getting connected to the competition in the Innovation Portal. You've already done this first step, which is to create your account on the Innovation Portal. We got that hopefully done. And then I said the next one is to actually send Anne the email address that you'll be utilizing on the Innovation Portal to make sure she can get you connected to the competition. Hopefully you've completed that step as well. She will or has sent you an invitation, which then you will need to accept. And with that once you accept that invitation, you'll be connected to the 2016 Kansas City Area Engineering Design Competition or the BioMed competition. There are two distinct ones, and so there will be different invitations depending upon which one you are judging.
And the really good news is that all of the judges online right now are connected to the contest. So yay, thank you everybody.
Great. We normally have a few stragglers, so I want to cover that. All right, so Innovation Portal in general, with the competition, how it works. We have a bunch of students and teams out here working on their portfolios. They have the same type of Innovation Portal account that you have, but they've created a portfolio. So they're not using the Innovation Portal to do reviews, they're using it to actually build a portfolio. We have Anne, who is the role of the competition administrator, who actually owns and runs this competition, and then we have this pool of judges. So she's handling all the communication between all the student teams and all the judges. So the step that the students are going through when you create a portfolio to submit to a competition is first registering. This just gives Anne an idea of how large the competition is, so she knows how many judges she has to recruit to actually review those. So that stage has already happened right now. The next stage students need to do is actually submit their portfolio. They have a window of when they can submit. It opened up March 14th and it is ending March 31st. And this is the window that they can say, my portfolio is complete, all my work is good to go, and I'm sending it in. It's like putting it in a package, putting a stamp on it, and sending it in the mail and submitting it to the competition. So Anne gets all these portfolios from all these different students and their teams into this competition, and she has quite a bit of them. A lot of students are in. I don't know what your final numbers are, Anne, but Innovation Portal can scale pretty well to be hundreds of portfolios and submissions. This is the largest one I've seen so far. So after that March 31st date, Anne's job becomes, how do I distribute those out to judges? So we have a magic button on April 1st to automatically distribute those portfolios. We say how many reviews we want each portfolio to receive. If we want each portfolio to receive at least 3 different reviews, then if we have the same number of judges and portfolios, we will have each judge review 3 different portfolios. And so those mixing and matching means that each portfolio will have 3 different scores, and the average of the scores will be the final score for the portfolio. So Anne distributes those to all the judges. You get those portfolios to review. You can do that at your own time frame. If you get them April 1st and they're due the 15th, then you have just about 2 weeks on your own time to actually evaluate those submissions. You can sit back in the morning with a cup of coffee and review them on the weekend. You could take an hour at work. That's whatever you want to do. It's on your own time frame. There's no live requirements for you to actually do that review process. The thing that does need to happen, though, is at the end of the review process, which is it's due April 15th, is to submit the scores. Just like the students packaged up their portfolio and put a stamp on it, put it in the mail, and sent it to the competition, you need to do the same for your reviews and send your scores back to Anne, the competition administrator. Once she has all those scores, she can compare the scores of all the portfolios and identify the top scored portfolios. So when a student creates a portfolio, one person can create a portfolio in the innovation portal. They can then invite any number of project partners. And so there are teams of students that can work on a portfolio together on the innovation portal, and they can invite as many people as they want. They can also invite their teacher to review their work and get feedback as they're building it. And then they can also invite project mentors. This is maybe a professional engineer they know. They want to give feedback on their engineering design project. Meet with them. They can send reviews out to these project mentors and request that they use the rubric to evaluate their portfolio where it's at. This is a nice tool for students to know where their work stands. If they can get a review from their teacher or their mentors, just to know where they stand on the rubric at that point before they submit it to the competition. Once they're satisfied with what their portfolio looks like, they can package that up and send it off to a competition, and they can actually submit to multiple competitions if they're eligible for more than one competition. So the same portfolio that a student develops for the Kansas City area competition can be submitted to multiple different competitions if that student is eligible. It's all based off that same standardized rubric that the innovation portal is built on. And there can be multiple portfolios in one account. So one student can own a lot of different portfolios. So at this point, I want to pause and see if we have any questions from any judges before I go through a walkthrough on the innovation portal to show you how to get access to your reviews when it comes time. All right, with no questions, I'll go ahead and get going. The first step is to log in. I've already done that here to the innovation portal with one of my spare accounts that is a judge I use for training. So this should be the screen that you see when you log into the innovation portal. The innovation portal assumes that you will want to build a portfolio because that's the basic reason of the innovation portal is to build a portfolio. You happen to be a little bit different from the normal use case because you're reviewing portfolios and you're not actually building one. So the first thing you'll want to do is go to this left-hand menu, this navigation menu, and actually go to opportunities to find the competition that you're a judge for. I do want to point out before we go there, though, that we have My Notifications. You should have received email notifications of your account activation of Anne inviting you to be a judge. You will also receive email notifications when you're assigned a review. If you don't receive email notifications or you want to see a list of all past notifications, you can click this and you can see several notifications of your account for different invitations. So here I have an example of an opportunity invitation. If I click this drop down here on the right, I can see that I have been invited to become a judge for the 2016 Kansas City area engineering design competition opportunity. So this, you should have already seen this opportunity and hopefully you've already accepted that. Click to review and then accept, or you can click the link directly in the email. The notifications that you haven't seen yet are these three down here. You'll have a notification and note you have been assigned to review the submission. And I have an example portfolio in here now under a training example. When Anne sends those submissions to you to review, you should have these notifications here and in your email. So I wanted to show you that, but then show you where the actual competition lives on this left-hand side menu. If you go to opportunities here, you should see all of the current opportunities. Because it's springtime, there's actually quite a few competitions being hosted on the innovation portal right now that are moving into submission and judging phase. And so you will have to find the competition that you are judging for. There's two possible choices for you at this point. It could be the engineering design competition here or the biomedical competition here, depending upon which one you're judging. The tricky thing is, though, that it will not actually be here once you will be judging it, because this is under current. All the students are currently now working on their portfolios, and they will be submitting their portfolios on March 31st, at which point it will move into the past because it's already been passed. So the first thing you'll want to do is actually click this pass button here. Under the past, you'll see a lot of competitions that have ended. These are all last year's competitions. We only keep 1 year's here, but you'll see quite a few of them. The Kansas City competition that you're judging will be here, and the 2015 one will disappear once that one moves over into past. So you'll have to find the 2015 Kansas City competition that you're judging. For the example that I'm showing you right now, I'm going to show you this training example that I'm going to show you with this account. You won't click training example, you'll be clicking the Kansas City competition that you're judging. So in this competition, there's very little information for this one just because it's a training competition. But if you wanted to, you could view, for the Kansas City one, you could even view it right now. It's in the current tab. All of the information posted publicly for teams, all the instructions that they have here. On the left-hand side is key information about that registration open and close window that I told you about, and the submission open and close window. In the case of the Kansas City one, it's being closed the 31st. If you are a judge for an event, you will see this bar up here. You will not see that if you're not a judge for the event. So you know you're in the right spot that you're judging for if you see this menu bar up here. So you want to click on reviews to actually see the reviews for this competition once Anne assigns them to you. For this training demonstration, I have 3 assigned to me. Up on the top, I can see that there are 0 of 3 assigned. There are 3 assigned, and I've completed 0 of them so far. I have the 3 different reviews here. I can see the owners, and I can see the date they were assigned. So I'm going to go into the first one. This will be my task to evaluate these 3. We've had a lot of feedback from judges, and about the time that it takes, and what they've told us for the first review, it takes just over an hour to evaluate the entire portfolio. And then after the first one, it goes a little bit faster because you're not having to read as closely the rubric, and you have a little bit more in memory, and you've done it before. So for these 3, I would expect about 3 hours of reviewing time for this to take for a judge. So we can go into the first one here. We have this portfolio loaded. So this is a submission that students have submitted that gave us permission to show to use it as training examples for multiple uses. The first page that we go to is actually a cover page. We have another navigation window on the right-hand side now, and I want to note that the cover page is highlighted when you first load it. There is nothing to grade on a cover page. It is purely just a cover page. Along the right-hand side, a good analogy for understanding this navigation is like a 3-ring binder with multiple tabs coming out of the right-hand side. Each one of these letters is a tab in that 3-ring binder, and the portfolio cover page is that blank sheet that you can stick in the front of a 3-ring binder. So to actually get to any content, we'll have to go to A, element A. And this is the first section that you will be assigning a grade for. You'll see all the student content loaded here in the main page here. So you can review this. On the right-hand side menu bar, you also have some information. So this is the rubric. This is the main content that you will be using to evaluate the portfolios. And I want to take a quick pause here before we jump to the rubric to see if there's any questions. All right. So the rubric, a little bit.
Unmuted.
All right, so a little bit of overview about the rubric before we dive into it. This is a standardized rubric used on the innovation portal. The main rubric that the entire innovation portal is built around. It is the result of a multi-year NSF grant that was funded with a lot of researches in higher education, all surrounding engineering education. The main thrust of the problem that they were trying to solve is how do you evaluate open-ended engineering design work when you don't have specific content to evaluate, but you have a process to evaluate. So this is very analogous to a science fair. You don't have all the same content, but you have the same process that you are evaluating as a judge. So one thing they had to do is write down the exact engineering design process and document and create a rubric based on a process then that judges could use. So the rubric is your centering point for how you know how to evaluate content through this engineering design process. So we can dive into the first one and see different components of that rubric. Actually, before we do that, Anne mentioned that Dr. Goldberg will be reaching out to you at some point with a survey for your feedback on this rubric. This has been in its static form for over about 3 to 4 years. And they're currently working on research to know how judges utilize this material and how they actually do reviews. And so any of your feedback will go into research that is being done on this rubric. So I just want to make that note. Jumping into element A is the first part of our rubric. It is the presentation and justification of the problem, the first step of the engineering design process. The first thing I want to show you is that you have a 0 through 5 rating scale here on the right. I can click them and I can read descriptions of what the student would have to put in the content to receive a score of 0 all the way ranging to 5. This rubric has language describing each different score, so you can read through that. It's different for each element. It ranges from 0 to 5, and they are even in ratings. So a score from 0 to 1 is the same stair step as a 1 to 2, which is the same stair step from a 2 to a 3. So it's a pretty even scale, and it's also a scale of best fit. If you at some point are wondering whether you should assign something a score of 3 or 4, you read the descriptions, look at the content, and see what best fits. It's not that you have to make sure that it fits perfectly to a 4 to assign a score of 4. You're looking for the best fit. Does it better fit for a 3 or does it better fit for a 4? It's not a discrete stair step where you have to meet this ledge before you get there. It is an even linear scale, and then best fit between the number that you pick. So that's the main part of the rubric, is the scoring examples from 0 to 5. Note that you are not actually assigning a score. You are only viewing a description of the score on this right sidebar here. If there's no content for this element, please assign a score of 0, just because there's no content, so it should be 0. The next thing I want to point out is that if you click a drop-down arrow here, you will see several bullet points. These are the reflective questions that students can use to guide their development. So a good way to ask this to students is, did you offer the reviewers of this portfolio a clear and concise problem statement that offers cause and effect phrasing and includes some level of data or statistics about the severity of the problem? That's one example. And then there's several guiding questions that students can use when developing out their portfolio and that you can use when evaluating a portfolio. So you have the reflective questions, you have the 0 through 5 grading scale with descriptions on the right here. The last thing I want to show you is you have an example, so to help yourself calibrate to what these scores actually are with actual examples. So if you look down here, you have a PDF file. And what I want you to do is, I'm about to click this, but if you could note on my tab, the browser tab in the upper left-hand corner, what happens here. Oh, didn't open. Should open another tab. Example. Here we go. I don't know what happened there, but it opens another tab. So depending on your browser, you could stay on this tab view and then have to click over to another tab view. This opens it up so you have several. So if you're looking at maybe a 3 or 4 and you're diving in depth, you can go in between them, and then you can go back to the portfolio just by clicking a new tab. So in this example, this one has several tools that you have in your toolkit to come up with the best score of best fit. So the first part is that you have the element. Just make sure you have the right element selected. You have the score of 3. So this is only relevant for element A and a score of 3. The example of the portfolio that this was pulled from was called the Snow Clear LED Traffic Signal Visor. So the first part you have in the very top is a narrative of why this score is a 3. This is a really great tool for you to use because a lot of research has occurred and a lot of people have evaluated this portfolio, and this has risen to the top among dozens of education professionals that this is the perfect example of a score of 3. And what you get here is a description of why they think it is a 3. So you can read the exact logic about why they think that this specific example gets a score of 3. The next thing you have in this is just a highlight of what element that this is relevant to within the entire rubric, components 1 through 5 and elements A through N. This is only relevant for element A. You have the entire stair-step rubric that we viewed before of scores ranging from 0 to 5 and the descriptions associated with it, with the score that this example scores as a 3 highlighted. Scroll down. Now you have the actual student portfolio that was submitted, the exact content that reviewers looked at to assign this a score of 3. So this is just a screenshot printout of the portfolio as it was, how and why it got and how it got a 3. So this is content you can review and you can use to reference to set your calibration, to set your baseline and calibrate yourself for scoring. You can use all of this and review the material that the students submitted for this portfolio. This one's pretty interesting. This was in a portfolio, and you'll see this reviewing during your reviews. Your 3 or 4 reviews may have some pretty interesting stuff in there to review. This one was pretty interesting because in northern climates, they had a problem where incandescent bulbs were using up a lot of energy, a lot of waste with an incandescent bulb. So they replaced them with LEDs. They saved energy, so they're more efficient. This one, the problem with an LED bulb is that it doesn't have heat, and so in bad weather conditions, sleet and snow, it actually built up snow on the light, covered it up, and motorists couldn't actually see whether the light was green, yellow, or red. So then they actually spent a lot of money sending out crews out to clean lenses, and so their effort to save money by putting LED lights in didn't save very much money because it filled up. So if you can solve this problem, you might strike it rich with a patent. So this is the problem that this student was evaluating with this portfolio. And I think I saw a question come in, so I want to pause and address that. Is there a way to view the rubric levels 0 through 5 for a given section side by side all at the same time in one document? There is. So one thing I'll show you, you have a couple different options. You can see it here, and this is not at the same time side by side, and you can toggle back and forth. If you want to toggle between 3 and 4, you can view them. If you want to dive into one specific element, you can look at this PDF document. And on top, you have the entire scale here, ranging from 0 to 5. Another document that we'll be sending out after the training, which I didn't want to send before just because it is rather large with the entire rubric, is this entire rubric element, all of the elements A through N, all of these elements here, and all the scores associated with each one. So that one, we do have a PDF file that we'll be sending out after that training with the entirety of it. If you want to print that one out, if you want to print the rubric out and then use your computer to look at the portfolio, you can do that. So that will be available. So we can close that once we're done with the example. Those examples are there for the entire design process. You can see examples ranging all the way down for all these different scores. So really a plethora of examples that you have of tools in your tool chest as you're doing this evaluation. I do want to note too that this
Elliot,
entire, yes, Ann.
Elliot, I'm sorry, I'm going to just interrupt you for a second. I'm not sure if I have anybody online who was actually a judge last year, but I do want to let you know that that is one of the improvements this year, is that there are a lot more scored element examples. If you do want to just get a feel for what the different scoring just kind of, it helps to give you a little bit of a kind of a check and balance as to how to grade these. And the other thing I want to mention briefly, in case people came in later, is Elliot mentioned that this was designed as an engineering design rubric. However, we've had quite a bit of conversation with different STEM professionals about its application in a biomedical environment, and so we'll talk a little bit about the language, but it really is, it's the same process that you would apply to an experimental design. So we are using it for the biomed. Even though it was essentially created in the engineering environment, it's very applicable to the types of projects that we'll see on the biomed side. So we'll have a chance to discuss that a little bit afterwards, but just highlighting that briefly for my biomed folks.
Yeah, great point, Ann. I also do want to point out that different elements can be included in different parts of different competitions. So one decision that the Kansas City competition has made is that they'll be evaluating components from A to L and not evaluating M and N. So that's one specific thing, but it is built in, so you won't be able to, you don't have to remember that. It is built in because of the next feature I'm about to show you here. So we're in A. We're reviewing the content of A. That the students actually did. And note I said that you are not actually assigning a score if you click here on the right. So that is not you assigning the score. This is only for you to view it. If you are ready to actually go to your score sheet and assign scores to content that students have submitted, there should be an arrow, a little pen arrow down here in the right bottom corner. If you click that, it opens up your judge score sheet. So this is analogous, using the science fair example again. If you were to get handed a clipboard with a pencil, then you walk around. This is your clipboard. It's your score sheet to actually mark your scores down on. The score that it starts out on is a question mark here. And then you have the scores ranging from 0 to 1, 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. And again, that linear scale, you pick the one that fits best. If you click the plus, you have the rubric available to you in another window here, and you can open that up. And then you can go from, again, 0 to 5 and read those descriptions as you have your score sheet up. It becomes a little bit of a trick in screen real estate because you're looking at student content, you're looking at the rubric, and you're looking at your score sheet all at the same time. So if that gets to be too much, you can just click that X and close that out again. But you can always open it up again if you'd like to review it. The other part that you have, and you're able to actually submit a comment associated with each of your scores. Those comments can be associated by each element, and you can provide those comments. I don't know if they'll be provided to students, but Ann will have access to those, and then she may provide those to students as feedback for next year, or it may contribute to the language used in an award ceremony about specific things they did great. So it will be, those comments will be utilized, but maybe not directly back to students. So once I think this A lawnmower Kickstarter, this one might look like a 3, so we're going to assign that score of 3, and then we're going to add a comment that this looks like a 3, and it could have added information about XYZ. So there's your feedback as a comment and your score of 3. So when we're done with that element, we can click that down arrow to close our score sheet and move on to the next element. So if we go to B, we can load more content here and then open up our score sheet again down here, the pen icon in the bottom right. We don't have a score assigned to it, but after we read the content and after we decide that this this particular element deserves a score of 5, we can put that here and put a comment in, this one is great. So we can add that, and then again close our score sheet. So we're going to do that for all of the elements A through L, and it typically takes about an hour for each review to go through each of these, reading all the content that the students have typed and provided. It could be pictures, it can be text, it can be video, so it can be a lot of different types of content that they embed here. Once we do all of them, A through L, and then actually I want to show you M. This one is not being scored. There's no content available on this portfolio, and note in the bottom right hand corner that pen icon is gone. So you will not be able to submit a score for M. So I just wanted to point that out. Once we're done though, once we have scores, and I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry, Elliot. I had another question or another comment, and that is that I would not worry too much about the formatting unless it's very, very awkward. Basically, the students, when they upload their information to the innovation portal, they're building web pages, so it's an HTML environment, and so it's not as fluid as a word processing environment, and so sometimes they struggle a little bit with the formatting. So if you have formatting changes, try to look beyond that, and just look at the content.
Great comment. Thank you, Ann. So once we've used our score sheet and submitted scores for each element, when we're finally ready to actually view our entire score sheet or our clipboard that was given to us, we can click this button, Complete Review. That brings us to a page that I call the Amazon shopping cart page. This is your chance to review everything that you've done before you actually send it off. And then so we can actually review the scores that we've assigned. So for element A, presentation and justification of the problem, we've assigned a score of 3, which is here, and we can review to make sure, yep, we assigned a 3, and that's what we meant to do. It also has our comment loaded here that we can review and make sure our comment is there. We did B as well. We have our comment, we have our score, and we have not submitted scores for any of the other elements. So we would want to make sure all of this is actually filled out before submitting. The only exception being M and N will have question marks in here. You will not be submitting a score for those. So I do want to say that this is like the Amazon shopping cart, but it's a little bit different because this is more like mailing it in with a stamp, because at this page, this button here is like putting a stamp on your clipboard or on your score sheet, and then hitting complete reviews like dropping in the mailbox. The reason why I say that is because once we click that button, we can't take it back. You can't reach back into the mailbox. You can't cancel the order. You can't take anything back. It is sent and finalized, and that's required just because Ann needs to set a point where all the scores are submitted and final, and so we built into the innovation portal the inability to actually retract a score sheet for a judge. So once this button is clicked, it's done, it's final. So this is your chance to review and make sure everything looks good. Make sure there's only question marks for M and N. So let's go ahead and do that. We put our stamp on the package, we click the I understand, and then we click complete review. So at this point, it is dropped in the mail and we don't have access to it anymore, but to change it anyway, but we do have access to look at it. We can go ahead and click that, and then we still have access to review. I can go to D, and if I forgot to put a score here, note that our pen icon is gone, which means we cannot put a score. We can review what we've done, however. We can click Review Summary, and we can come back to this page and just see what we did. We can look at our comments, we can look at our grading sheet. So that is in the mail, and Ann has sent it. So I want to go back to all of our reviews to show what happened on our status inside this opportunity. So again, if we want to go back to the opportunity, we can use the left-hand navigation bar, click Opportunities. We need to find the Kansas City competition that we are a judge for, but in this case, we're going to go to the training example. Once we're here, we can click Reviews. And what we have here those 3 reviews that we had before, we have 1 of 3 complete. So that is 1 of them done and complete, sent in, and then we can move on to evaluate the next 2 portfolios that we've been assigned. Are there any questions at this point?
Oh, hold on. Let me unmute everybody. There we go. Any questions at all?
All right, well then the last thing I want to leave you with, going back to our PowerPoint.
Muted.
Oh.
Unmuted.
I got it, Ann. Thank you.
Sorry.
All right, so the last thing I want to leave you with is three documents that you either have received or will receive. The first one is a PDF, a step-by-step guide for judges. I believe that one is all capital. Access is in the how to access the innovation portal, has already been sent out by Ann, and that's I think it's a 3-sheet summary of the buttons to click in the innovation portal, how to get to your actual reviews. So a quick summary: if you come back 2 weeks after this training and wonder where to click and wonder where to get started on the innovation portal, you have that document. You also have the recording that we're recording right now. The next one is reflective questions from the innovation portal. I think you have that one, and this is pretty much a summary of the reflective questions. That is that rubric. The last one that I know that has not been sent out is the ED-PPSR rubric, the entire rubric in its entirety, and kind of like a past history of the rubric, that how it was developed, if you're curious to read that one. The reflective questions will have the entirety of the rubric in the scale of 0 through 5, so that you can actually use that and print it out if you want to when you're doing the review online on the innovation portal. So you'll be receiving those documents. I think you've already received 2 of them. You'll also be receiving a link to this training if you have any questions. So there, Ann, if you want to say anything, that kind of concludes my portion of the training.
Thank you, Elliot. That was great. And since we haven't any questions, you must have done a really good job. So I appreciate your doing such a great job. So the only thing I guess I want to make sure, again, there aren't any questions, and or to make sure that judges know that at any time once you get into the middle of this and you start judging, if you have a question or run into any problems at all, please contact me directly, or you can also contact Elliot. And then just a reminder that if you are judging the Biomed contest, we'd love to have you stay online for a few minutes. But I'm going to unmute everybody and just see if there are any comments or questions about the contest. Okay, so very good. Well, I think hopefully everybody feels ready to be a great judge. I appreciate your time and look forward to seeing your scores. So we'll go ahead and conclude the primary training point, and I will send out the YouTube link to this so that if you have any questions, you have access to that. And happy judging. Thank you.